Welcome to Game Soup. It's a game design podcast where we throw ideas in a pot and see what's cooking. I'm Chloe and I'm joined by Kayla. How you doing, honey?
I am doing good. I am preparing a frightening return to the green realm of Kickstarter. No, but my actual week in general, I think, has been okay. I think a lot lately. I've started getting, I guess, a more sort of regular schedule of stuff. Like I have something I do now every Tuesday for a bit, which takes like a couple of hours, and so I think it's weird for me to notice, I guess, how my own like energy level shifts about just having even sort of one obligation.
Yeah, like a schedule really helps for like, oh, I know that, like you say, on Tuesday I've got to do this thing, so on Monday I'm going to take it a bit easier or whatever.
But I feel I get what you mean of a schedule helps in terms of like, yeah, not just like freewheeling it, but also I'm like it's mainly like a program I'm doing at a hospital. And I'm like, obviously that is a good thing to do, but it's not a thing that is exciting. So me losing energy from that on a Tuesday, I guess frustrates me in the sense that I can't I feel devote as much to trying to reach out to people more or whatever. But no, I've done some things. I caught up with a friend yesterday, going out like later this evening. And yeah, in that time, I've been preparing a Kickstarter page.
Tell us about the Kickstarter page.
Before? Oh, do we do this right now? I didn't know if you wanted to do more of our conversation. So yeah, I am tentatively planned for the start of August, launching a Kickstarter for I'm with the Damned and Other Games, which is going to be a new book by me. It's going to be a collection of multiple games that are played with music and tarot cards. The lead title, I'm with the Damned, is about a rising band who have basically setting off on a first major tour after having signed a deal with a dark power. So it's about the pressure cooker that becomes like their relationship in this, and it's played out as a musical where characters are bursting into songs to express their feelings. Do You Want to Go is a remix of the game The Infinite Dance Hall, which I'd released before, where it's you trying to escape an ever-expanding, unnatural, strange nightclub. You want to reunite with your friend and get all of your gang out of there. And in this case, it's going to use so it's set to music with music as your timer before the entire environment gets reshuffled and remixed. And as well as that, it's using the minor arcana for action resolution, but also for tracking your stress. And it's basically zeroing in on how you are sort of managing and trying to preserve a friendship in a very stressful situation. And then it has two essentially like a new edition and a new rules variant for Follow Me in the Night, which was the playlist building solo game I have wrote very early in my career. It explores like a character struggling with sleeplessness, wandering city streets, vanishing, ghosts represented by music. So it's a project I think is very exciting, but also it's a project that is kind of, I'm going to do some things that I wouldn't necessarily always have planned to do, because the goal for the project is set around 4,600, tentatively. There's a chance it gets shifted at some point.
Yeah.
That's a higher goal than this book will cost to produce, and it is a higher goal than I've set a crowdfunding campaign at before by quite a bit. The reason for that is because I'm using this campaign, and I'm going to use most of the funds, if we successfully fund, to pay for a power assist add-on for my wheelchair. That's only funds after my living costs and the production costs of the book. It's not like it's all sorted out, but because I can self-propel on flat terrain, but a lot of outdoor spaces are not really flat, and that means there are certain places where it's kind of impossible for me to navigate by myself, or just impossible to navigate by myself without a significant amount of strain.
Yeah.
So the book and the campaign is kind of a means to an end in that sense. That means it's things like I'm planning it in August, even though maybe some more lead time would have been more ideal. There's not going to be any stretch goals because that wouldn't fit with the aims of what I'm trying to do here. And yeah, I'll also be upfront. I'm with the Damned is completely finished, but the other titles are all just in various drafting stages. This isn't how I'd ordinarily run things, but it is because it's a means to an end. And I'm not saying this because I'm asking for help. I'm not necessarily making the campaign to ask for help. I'm making the campaign to sell you something. But I'm being honest about why
The reason
things
you're
are the
selling
way
the
they
thing,
are,
yeah.
because there is that factor. I definitely recommend checking out. I think if you've connected with any game I've written, and I have written many of them, I do think there's something in this collection for you, whether it's you're fans of stuff I've done with card play, done with music, done with sort of like, modern day settings, which I think is an area I play in a lot, and also just explorations of friendship and relationships. If you've liked any of my games, I think there's something in this collection you'll love, and yeah, it would help me out if you went to it. So go to kickstarter.com/I'm with the damned and other games. I'm going to try and set up a redirect, which will probably be mixtape.ratwave.uk, I reckon.
It'll be in the description.
It will be. Do you want to tell me how your week has been now?
It's been good. I had a meeting at work this morning where they espoused the amazingness of Pepsi Cola. And then they were like, come test some Pepsi Cola. And it was all far too sweet. So...
and this was a meeting where you were just drinking...
this was a meeting. So I work at a cinema. And so they did a PowerPoint presentation. And it was like, right, here's all the facts about Pepsi. So you can upsell it to your customers and like, oh, we got the mix-it machine so you can get flavorings and stuff. And it's like all this, we already had all this for Coke, but they just changed it to Pepsi because it's probably cheaper to buy in.
Right. So now they're telling you, here's how you pitch. Is Pepsi okay?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, do you want to pay any 50 pence extra for your large? And it's like, no, if somebody's already said they want a regular, they're not going to go for the large.
Wait, sorry. No, people do. I've definitely known people who, when they're told just like, oh, it's 20p extra for a large, they go for it. I'm not saying they should, but I'm like, no, Clay, people do take the large a lot.
Well, I don't know. I always just say regular or large. I don't ever offer the small. That's my upselling. Take it or leave it.
Which is funny because a small in a cinema is like a regular.
It's like still half a litre, yeah.
And also, we're talking about UK cinemas. I know they're obviously
yeah,
even more obscene in America. I don't think that's like just an untrue stereotype. I feel I've seen pictures of the size of bottles and stuff in American cinemas. I do feel that is real rather than just a misconception. And you don't like Pepsi.
I didn't enjoy any of the ones that they gave us to taste. I was like, oh, that one's clearly diet because I don't hate it. It's not sickeningly sweet.
Obviously, if you don't like sweet stuff, all of the like, especially like, oh, we've got new flavored of soda, and this applies to like Coke and Sprite, Pepsi, any of them. It's like you're not gonna like them because like the way flavors are added to syrups, which are just obviously going to be probably a bit too sweet for you. I like sweet things because I think they reflect my sweet and
I normally do. It's just like Pepsi is just sickeningly sweet.
I just thought you were
Are you recording this in a cafe? What's happening?
Are you asking about the collisions outside my house? Are you picking them up?
Yeah. Just like keep hearing clinking and things. It's like, are you in a cafe?
Okay, if you're hearing it clinking, it's because it's a warm summer day and I'm having an ice latte. Because no matter what people say, I am still queer. I don't know if you're hearing the crashing. If you are, that is because randomly this morning, some people came round, laid a carpet down in front of my building, and then began tossing things out of the flat upstairs.
That's nice.
Doors, wheels, things. Yeah, it was really annoying when I just got back in because I sort of propped the doors all over the alleyway, and I just sort of like had to roll up. There was no one around, and eventually was like, "Is anyone around?" One of them came down. I was like, didn't really say anything, just silently went to moving, which is I think a thing a lot of people do, and I'm always like, you can talk in this process. It's not like the end of the world to not, but I'm like, it's sometimes very weird where people will look at me and just wordlessly make their movements.
You're very clearly just an annoying object to them.
Yes, I do remember a time I was with a friend who confirmed this. I was in the middle of like a cafe. Cafes. Where you can get iced latte and hear sort of bangings and clackerings from time to time. Um, and I was in a walkway through because it was in a shopping center, and there was also right next to me a small child, who I think was just like starting to line up, and a guy. The small child was with their parent. I also was with my friend. This detail is relevant. And yeah, a guy tries to walk up and just looks like so angry as he's sort of looking from side to side at like me and this kid, and then my friend and the kid's dad. Like before, I think eventually the kid moves of his own accord. But I was saying, like, and me talking to my friend after it, like, why was that guy so angry? And I was like, oh, it's because he was looking at me and the child and going, why are people not moving? These not real people. These people like things that are in my way. Why are there responsible there? Why aren't the real people who have to accompany these individuals,
these things,
not moving them out of my way? A real person, like, as like, yeah, it's a funny thing seeing it right next to a child, because I do think there's often a similar level of contempt.
Yeah, depersonalization.
Yeah, which this podcast is not necessarily a place to really dive into as much as we do love the Kayla Complains Hour.
Look, we're 10 minutes into this recording. It is a game design podcast. Let's
It is. I actually do have a game design thing. Like I said, I met up with a friend yesterday, and she was asking me for an opinion on something. It's because I guess I talked about having done like card and tarot stuff. She was wondering a game. Saying, like, what do you feel like the big differences are between like cards, tarot, and dice? And I talked about some of the stuff we talked about in a previous episode, where I was saying like rolling a dice feels more like you are doing something versus revealing a card feels like revealing something that was already true. And for this case, it was just around a random table thing. But then I was saying, like, I guess when I was zeroing away from dice and into the difference between like regular cards and tarot cards, like the advantage to tarot that I think people sort of know intuitively is like, oh, it has some kind of like magical divination like vibes that like can kind of like have a bit of a sort of transitive property to the game. The downsides of it is that they're obviously more expensive compared to playing cards. But then I was wondering about like, well, what do playing cards offer just on their own instead of, you know, is it just that like, yeah, they're smaller numbers and cheaper? And I was like, I think playing cards do kind of convey a degree of like strategy or tactics, even when that's not actually there. I think playing a card from hand to beat a number, even though that is just not actually any more strategic than like, it's mildly more strategic than rolling a dice, but say it wouldn't be any more strategic than rolling dice and assigning them. It feels more like you've done something smart, I guess, because of associations with card games, which are smart and strategic.
It's like the hidden information, I mean? As opposed to like assigning things to. I know you're just assigning the 7 of clubs to a position rather than my pre-rolled 6 to it, but
yeah, I do feel there's a difference where, and often it's like, it is easier, I think, to do some interesting tactical stuff with card design. Actually, let me talk about what the way the stress mechanic is going to work in Do You Want to Go, which is my Infinite Dance Floor remix. Now, this is admittedly with the minor arcana, but like this could easily work with playing cards. It's think that anytime like you fail a check and you're told to draw stress, you have to draw a card from the top of the deck and lay it in front of you, and like your stress pile is adding up like a blackjack counter. I've not yet decided on the number. I think the number where you crash out on stress is going to vary, because I think it will be smaller if you have more players, which I'll explain why in a bit. So it's like when you beat a stress threshold, you blow up and you're directed to like basically like have an argument or like lash out or just blow up like at people around you. But then what you get to do is, with that having done, you can now take some of the cards from your stress pile into your hand, and you discard the rest because you have a new stress pile. And you can play those cards instead of just drawing randomly from the deck to beat obstacles.
Yeah.
And it also means that, like, as you draw stress, it may be saying, like, you draw stress, you draw an ace. and you're like, oh damn, that ace, which is like a critical success, is not going to get used until I blow up at someone.
Yeah.
And then your moves can, like, the individual abilities character classes have would let you move stuff around. Like, I think someone has an ability which is apologize, where it's like, oh, if you say sorry to someone, even if it's not needed or necessary or whatever, you can give one of your stress pile cards to their hand. Vent is
so you can
like,
manipulate what they have to use.
Yeah, vent is like, if you complain about something to someone aside from the whole group, you can give one of your stress cards to them to use as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, no, I think that move there is different. I think maybe it's vent. You take one of their stress cards in. No, I can't remember. These are different moves, but there. Burn is one where it's like, because you are just a higher stress person, every time you're drawing cards for an action, you draw 2, and 1 is the action resolution, and 1 you have to take a stress. And it's like, I think. Oh yes, Soothe is one where anytime someone fails and draws stress, once like in a loop, you can try and calm them down and take the card they drew as stress into your hand. And it's a lot of moves that are all about managing your stress and your energy, often not necessarily in healthy ways, often in ways in which are just keeping you below the, like, blowing up threshold.
Like other people are taking on your stress or you're taking on theirs, and...
Yeah, it's like, these are ways of managing stress a little bit and giving you some cards to use that may get you successful. But the only way to really get all of the most reliable way is to just, like, blow up and go through the stress rather than keeping it down.
Yeah.
And I think that's some interesting card play that can feel tactical. And admittedly, I've maybe undercut my point because it's with the minor arcana of tarot rather than regular playing cards. But I feel the minor arcana...
I mean, the minor arcana and normal playing cards are basically the same thing, just with pictures.
Yeah, I feel like there's less in... I mean, like, people can still do, like, divination and drawings, obviously, with the minor arcana mixed in. But yeah, like, their mechanical workings are a bit different, so they're closer to that. Did you want to talk about that green realm?
I mean, we're thinking about doing a Green Realm adventure into the Kickstarted lands for Bittercold, A Hunt Through the Bittercold, because it was really quite popular at UKGE, more so than it ever really has been.
It was very popular at Tabletop Scotland, I remember.
I guess we finally, like, worked out how to pitch it to people rather than, oh yeah, it's like kind of a trick-taking game. It's like, no, it's an analog roguelike.
That's a better line. I feel like, yeah, I remember Alyssa struggled with it seemingly at Tabletop Scotland. I think she'd often almost apologise for it and be like, it's not really an RPG.
Yeah, it's like, no, if you don't want to say to people what it's not, you want to say, this is the XYZ, you know? It's like, oh, this is the sports anime game. This is the game where you play as Nemesis's whatever, Nemesi?
Nemesis. No, I think it's just Nemesis with a S. I'm trying to remember if I... Yeah, no, I never had to use the plural there, because the Nemesis was always the singular rival, whereas the other character got called the hero. I think there may have been some references to, like, the rivals or the enemies or something, but, like, I avoided having to pluralize Nemesis.
Nemesiple.
So is what you're planning, like, just a big new printing or some...
Yeah, I mean, we want to do art for it. I mean, we like the text of it so far. We reckon it's just good. Maybe some of the numbers want to get tweaked a bit, but again, that's just more playtext testing needs doing for it. But I mean, we're pretty happy with how it is. The first printing of it was always felt like kind of a beta test, as it were. But
yeah, I know there's some, like, layout artifacts you don't love.
Yeah, some of the
don't detract from the quality of the game you would be buying.
Is good, but, like, there's just some niggling little imperfections in the design of the book. And it's like all of the art for it is public domain, which isn't so much a bad thing, but it's like you want to stamp your own, like, this is what the Bittercold is, rather than this is a representation of it, you know?
I do get what you mean. I always find it fun when I sometimes see someone else use a bit of public domain art after. It feels like learning your partner's cheating on you. No, I think it's funny. But occasionally I will see saying, and I'll be like, I know that bit. I know that bit from the Boys King Arthur. But I do get what you mean about like a game feels more like you've defined something, I guess, specific. I think that can also depend on what you do with public domain art, though.
It's funny you bring up King Arthur because I'm reading through a book at the minute called King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table, which is a children's collection of King Arthur stories. Because it was the only one that the Waterstones had, but it was £8 and it has all the myths that I want. So,
is this just you wanting having a little getting into our Furiana phase, or is it for any reason?
Well, I think I am entering into a bit of a phase for it, but we got Pendragon at the start set for Pendragon at UKGE, and I was like, right, I want to have the myths so that I can dwarf them when I end up playing this, so I can be like, oh yeah, I know there's a Green Knight and there's a Holy Grail, but like I want like the nitty gritty, like the Fisher King, whatever else.
You don't just want a pop culture version of it.
Yeah, I want to be able to be like, oh yeah, like at the end of a session, I want to be able to be like, yeah, that was kind of a loose adaptation of whatever and whatever. But your characters
it is good inspiration. That sounds fun. I guess I do think, like, to be honest, there's probably a real value in reading through a children's collection of stories for GM prep. Do you know what I mean? Because like they are not. Obviously, there'd also be plenty of value in reading one for adults if you were able to find one. But I think there's a lot of sort of like breaking things down to building block steps in.
Yeah. Oh, I will admit, this is a dense book. This was written in the 1950s, and it is. I would struggle to have read this as a child. Yeah.
They weren't.
They had more time for reading.
I think it's more that language was different. It's why sometimes things written. I also think to be like. This is a bigger conversation. I don't know that I would spend way too much of it talking just like out of my ass, I guess, about like. I mean, you studied children's lit, or have I made that up?
Alyssa did.
Fuck. I was so close to being right. I knew one of you did. Were you a film studies girly like me?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
Film production.
I think it's a real strength in RPGs. People don't talk about it, but I do actually think. I don't know. I think my layout is good in part because of the filmmaking techniques I knew about that I never really got to use in filmmaking.
Yeah. The reason that I talk about the King Arthur book is because it has kind of inspired me to write an idea for a B.O.B. game in a similar vein to my Goblin Countries is. Because Pendragon, as much as I love reading through it, it is a dense book. It has a lot of knobs and twisty things. Mechanics, I believe they're called. And my mushed up TikTok brain needs simplified bullshit. I love writing mechanics, but also I love working B.O.B. So I'm like, what would I do?
I think maybe it's very fun. I think it's interesting you went mushed up TikTok brain because I feel I don't know, mainly in a weird way. I feel like some people prefer mechanics for like the security they get with them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's people who look at a B.O.B. game and think it's super complicated. So I guess it's just different strokes,
Yeah, but no. So are you working on a sort of?
Well, I've pitched ideas to Alyssa for a bunch of playbooks and setting elements and like a sort of bunch of clocks that are like, how in Morkborg they've got like that big page of prophecies.
Yeah.
Or like it looks like it's from the Bible, like the Revelations or some shit. I'm wanting to have like, here is a bunch of prophecies, because like a big thing that I've read so far in this book is that Merlin will just turn up and be like, yes, this sword you'll kill your greatest
You're going to have Merlin as a setting element.
Exactly.
Because I feel Merlin should be a setting element, not a playbook.
No.
What are you imagining your playbooks? I'm very curious about this now. I'm really interested in this idea. Let's just talk about it for a bit, if you want
exactly. So, where is the message I sent to Lisa? Let me scroll for a minute. So, my ideas for the playbooks is that they're all ruled by different things in the world. So, the chivalrous is ruled by their oaths. The vengeful is ruled by their emotions. The romantic is ruled by their heart. The proud is ruled by their vanity. The spiritual is ruled by a higher power's teachings. The cowardly is ruled by their fear. And then the youthful is a squire who has the potential to be anything. So that's kind of like they're getting influenced by all these other people, but they can go in any direction.
That is cool. Yeah, for Do You Want to Go, in the notes I've made about playbook classes even, I've tried to give each of them a, like, why are they here? Like, I think one is, like, for the rush, for the mess, for the company, for the music. Like, I like that. What are they driven by?
And with each of these, you can pretty broadly map them onto different Knights of the Round Table. Like the romantic is Lancelot or whatever.
It's fun. You could probably, in your, pick or create a name bit, list knights you could make in that.
Yeah.
Which would be a nice way of doing it. So, like, what do you imagine? Because I guess it's an interesting thing where, like B&B games are obviously not inherently non-violent. Like, they frequently can do violence.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is what I'm trying to work out before I start writing this. How do I do violence in this? And I'm thinking, is there some sort of, like, every confrontation is lethal? And is it maybe, like, you spend a certain amount of tokens that you've gained, like a sort of betting thing, like, oh, I'm going to spend 4, but they don't know how many I'm going to spend, so they might spend 3, and so I beat them, but they might spend more, so do I want to then up the ante or what?
That is actually, I think, a really interesting way of doing it. Though I guess for there, if you're not only doing character v character thing, you would probably need to be doing a version of BOB like Galactic 2E or Psycho Dungeon or stuff where the setting element has their own
tokens, yeah.
Because then it can be like, oh, this knight who who is a representative of the setting element of the Fae. The Fae has, over the course of this session, gained like 5 tokens. So whoever's playing this knight right now has 5 tokens to bet with against your. I do like that. Really interesting. I do imagine it means you need to, like, way more think about the granularity of the token economy than you usually do for BOB.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
it's fine. It can be an interesting challenge.
Yeah, so my setting elements are the Fae, the lay people, like the common folk, whatever. Magic itself, which I think, on rethinking about this, might just be interlinked with the Fae themselves.
Yeah, my gut was like, you'd need to do a lot to make that meaningfully a different setting element, or not just doubling it up. This also thing, if you are giving setting elements their own playbook, their own token economy, when I did that for Swamp Creature, it coincided with me going like, okay, I'm not going to have too many setting elements. Like, I kept it down to 4.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like for a game like this, you could have more options and then just go like, how many setting elements are you picking for an individual session?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's absolutely a way I could go with this, where it's like each different rival court has its own setting elements, and it's like, oh yeah, the I don't know, the barbarians or the Celts or whatever.
Yeah, I guess this is a big thing, like, because obviously we're always saying about violence, like, BOB can do violence, you just need to decide exactly how it works and stuff like that. Like, Dream Askew itself is not a non-violent game, obviously. But the mechanics don't usually, like, zero in on that area in the same way as many other games. But what I was going to say is, like, are you thinking of any action in this game as being, like, knight-errantly sort of, like, adventures and stuff? Or are you imagining that, you can go to war in this game?
So I think you are being sent on missions by the Crown, which I also have as a setting element, which is played by everyone at the table collectively, like the dragon that we have in Kobold Country. Rather than one person taking it on, it's everyone takes a turn saying a line or whatever.
That's cool. I like that thing. That is interesting for missions from the Crown, though.
Yeah, and I think like each of these missions are from this big page of prophecies that you've got, and it's like, gentlemen knights, I need you to slay whoever, or there must be a great feast held on St. Swithin's Day, or whatever the hell. Like, and then like
I think the thing I find interesting is just like, oh, sorry, finish.
No, like you have a bunch of ideas, like prompts for what might happen in each session.
Kind of using prophecies like half like clocks and prophecies, like half like the clocks in Goblin Country and like the more prophecies, but also kind of like episodes in Tournament Arc.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think the thing I find very interesting about this idea is obviously like I feel like most belonging outside belonging games, not or like most games like even like derived from that, like kind of focus on outsiders, and this is a game you're proposing kind of about like the ultimate insiders.
Yeah, you are the agent of the crown and of God, basically.
Yeah, you're not outside belonging here. If you belong, it's because you're deep in the inner circle.
Yeah, nobody else can relate to you because you are the thing.
I think that could itself be an interesting. I am excited to see what you do with this game idea. I'm excited to see what happens with Bittercold. Do you have an idea of when you'd be planning to do that, by the way?
It's a Bittercold. Or is it still
sort of feeling it out?
I mean, we haven't got any art sorted for it yet. We've talked with some artists. We'd love to do it in August, September. We'll probably wait for yours to finish so we're not butting heads. But then I know rising tides, etc. So
hard to say. I was also saying a theory recently. I feel like Kickstarter FOMO has just changed.
Yeah, there's been so many that it's just like, yeah, okay, I'm like, especially with big stuff like with the Avatar game, it's like, oh, it was big on Kickstarter, but then nobody has spoken about it since it came out.
I feel, yeah, I mean, the other thing I was thinking, though, is I feel like, obviously the conventional wisdom used to be that, like, overfunding, you want to fund quickly, and then people see it's a sure thing, so buy more, and you overfund by a lot.
Yeah.
But I wonder if maybe, I feel like over, like, the last, like, 5 years, like, there's now kind of, the vast majority of things you see on Kickstarter are going to be available after that Kickstarter ends. You know, game-wise, like, it's no longer a damn if I don't get this on Kickstarter, I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to buy it. There's kind of now a guarantee of you will. And I wonder if combined with, like, you know, cost of living bleeding into what's kind of just a recession now, like, you are getting...
It's kind of just a fancy pre-order.
Well, yeah, I think people are now more likely to go, oh, that's funded. I don't have any money and this won't come out for a year. I'm good now. I'm like, I think maybe increasingly things are maybe more getting to just their goal and struggling, not struggling past it, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering if in general with campaigns we should start thinking more about what our original goals are at, because, and that's why, yeah, I'm set mine at a very specific level this time. So please do follow that pre-launch. I'm only going to launch in August if it feels likely to succeed. I've explained the reasons why I would really like to launch in August, but you know that is reliant on me seeing that the interest is there for this to be a feasible
we've seen
idea,
enough of you stressing about Kickstarter on this podcast before, so
yeah, I don't think this is a bad idea. It's a I think this is a fine, good idea, but I understand why many people I've told this idea to have looked at me with a bit of concern. I do get that, but I think I'm a changed woman. I think I'm going into this with a better mindset. Sorry. We did talk about games this episode. I'd argue more than sometimes we even do, even though we never went to our random word generator. We talked about my compilation, Do You Want to Go, Bittercold, Do you have a fun name for your Arthurian game you're considering?
Current pitch is The Round Table.
That is fun.
Thank you for listening to Game Soup.
Go
follow Out of the... No, what is it? It's not Out of the Fold.
I'm with the Damned and Other Games.
I'm with the Damned and Other Games on Kickstarter, so you can be one of the first to back it and get a little shout out on the pod, question mark? I don't know, maybe.